Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and today I'm doing another regionals report where I managed to place quite high up. I in fact got first place with a Yveltal Vespiquen Crobat deck. Remember, this is still XY to Ancient Origins. This is actually the last tournament in the UK before Breakthrough is legal, so I'll be going to Newport next week and Breakthrough stuff is all coming out. So this was the last tournament available where I could play this sort of deck because I feel like the metagame might be shifting. So it was a meta call on the day. I'll discuss how I reached the point where I wanted to play this deck and why I played it, as well as a list and everything. Then we'll go into a few matchups and then finish off by talking about the new breakthrough stuff as well. So should be pretty interesting. So like I have done with the last couple of reports, let's do a quick recap from the week before. This is what I often like to do. I like to look at the week before and the week before's that, those sorts of results, to sort of choose my deck for the following week. So last weekend we saw Luke Kirkham win with Manectric Bats, and pretty good deck. It is like the old Lucario Landorus Bats, but I mean Manectric EX is slightly worse than him in terms of his first attack, but his second attack is much nicer for killing EX Pokemon. Luke played loads of Headringers and stuff to slow down other EX decks, so it sort of had good matchups with lower HP stuff because Overrun plus Bat Drops help you out against stuff like Night March and Vespiquen. And then Manectric's second attack can be really good at finishing off EXs once you've put that early damage on. So it's a very good deck, very, fairly easy to play really, as long as you know how to play your Bat Drops. So good deck there. In second place, we actually saw Charlie Powell with a Camerupt EX, then there's the Magma Camerupt and Entei as his tech. So very interesting build. And a fire deck that we haven't seen many fire decks popping up here and there. I remember in the first week I played Yveltal for that very reason. But now Camerupt was something to be aware of. And then the next 6 places, there was 3 Night March and 3 Seismitoad Giratina. So clearly those sorts of decks were very consistent at getting you top cuts. There I am in at 3rd place with Totina. I lost to Luke Kirkham's Manectric Bats. So this is basically what to expect in week 3. As you just saw, Seismitoad Giratina and Night March consistently topping over the last 2 weeks. I was pretty sure that a large percentage of people would be taking one of those 2 decks to London. Just because of their consistency and how they have, around 50-50 matchups around most other decks. So a lot of players sort of go towards that sort of thing so they don't have any auto losses. I was also expecting a couple of Manectric Bats decks, as well as a handful of Lucario Bat decks, hoping to deal with Manectric, if that makes sense. Having, weakness on the deck that won the week before is, sometimes going to help you win games in this week. So I felt like a resurgence of Lucario Bats may have been around. I was also thinking that there could be some Mega Sceptile around because it's pretty good against most of the bat dropping decks because of that Theta stop that it has. And it has winnable Night March and Totina. Nothing fantastic, but you can win games with it. So I thought there'd be maybe a handful of those, but then again you have to be sort of afraid because Camerupt Entei managed to come 2nd last weekend, so I wasn't expecting too much Sceptile overall. So, if you were paying attention to my last report, I highlighted Yveltal Bats as a strong pick for week 3 due to its strong Night March and Totina matchups, as well as having the added bonus of a good Fighting Bats matchup. And as I just mentioned, those were the 3 decks that I was thinking to see a lot of. So the list I actually showed, it had, I think, Malamar EX as the main attacker, so I started testing throughout the week. I did that video, on the Monday or the Tuesday, I can't remember which day it was, but testing throughout the week, I found that the deck really struggled to overcome Mega Manectric Rough Seas and Sceptile decks. They're pretty much auto losses. Malamar was just not a good enough attacker. He just isn't a good enough attacker in general because of the flips and stuff. Unreliable. And he wasn't even that helpful against Seismitoad Giratina. In testing, they play so many Super Scoop Ups, Switches, AZs. Some even play Cassius, so even if you do get that sleep on them and they stay asleep, they have all of those outs. Additionally, they can just Lysander up the Malamar. It has a chunky 2 retreat cost. They can always slap Headringer on there. So Malamar wasn't as effective as I had hoped as a pair for the Yveltal Crobat. So I was starting to dismiss the deck and move on to a different thing. But then I listened to PTCG Radio, as I do every week. And The link will be in the description for that. Ross is a great player, and he's always bringing us up to date with news and different tournaments from around the globe and all that good stuff. So one thing he quoted just sort of off the cuff was that he was planning on playing a fun deck that beats Night March, and my ears pretty much pricked at that line. I thought, well, a fun deck that beats Night March, that sounds a lot like Yveltal Bats. So I quickly went to message him with good buddies, and I was hoping that he was going to have a slightly more usable Yveltal Bats list. Turned out he was actually thinking of playing Yveltal Vespiquen. So, clearly this is better than Malamar EX because it offers a non-EX option to actually one-hit EXs, so that helps our favourable prize trade, which is a huge thing in this game, especially because we have additional bat drops that we could play in the deck, so plenty of opportunities to win prize trade there. Also, Vespiquen is much more usable against Totina. It's a free retreater, so obviously not a Lysander target or anything like that. And also we can threaten Seismitoad, so that oftentimes they can't even Quaking Punch us in fear of like going down 2 prizes early on. So we basically force the Giratina active, and if you play around it well enough, with enough energy on your bench dudes, you should be able to win that matchup because of the requirements it takes for Giratinas to get set up. It's quite slow. The main difference, basically Ross gave me his list when we were discussing it. The main difference was he still had evolutions and he didn't play bats. His thinking was because he didn't want to take the auto loss to Yveltal. Makes a lot of sense, but overall it was just clunking out the deck, and I didn't find the evolutions to be all that helpful, especially because we were playing Dark Energy anyway for Baby Yveltal. I think one of the main perks of playing the Flareon was so that you could Blacksmith rather than just hitting for weakness. And like I said, I wasn't too worried about Yveltal because Charlie had come second the weekend before with a fire deck, so I was hoping that Yveltal players would be put off by that. So I more so took inspiration from Patrick's list. He came second place in Huddersfield, that's the first week of our regionals, with Vespiquen, Crobat, Bronzong. And basically I stole that idea and went for the bat line in the Vespiquen list. To really help out on fighting bats and Night March matchups, believing that they'd be more popular than Yveltal. And even if you do play the Flareon, don't think you can beat Yveltal straight away, because most Yveltals are playing 1-2 Hexmaniac and probably 2 Lysander as well, so once they take out the Flareon, we're still in a lot of trouble, and obviously they can shut off the Flareon as well with Hexmaniacs, and that's all they really need. They need to stall a couple of turns while they beat through your Vespiquens, and it's pretty difficult for you to come back, so even with the Flareon line, I don't think it makes you good enough against Yveltal to make me want to play it over the bat line, which really helped out in a lot of different matchups instead. So overall, the only differences to Patrick's list, he was playing 32 Pokemon on that week 1 deck that came second. I went for a much lower count of Pokemon, mainly because there's a really popular build of Night March in the UK right now that plays 3 to 4 Hexmaniac. And Patrick's main draw was coming from 4 Unknowns and 4 Shaman EX. I didn't feel comfortable enough doing that because I knew that I'd be Hexmaniac from the very first turn against a lot of these Night March decks. So I went for a more stable build with lots of trainer draw, as you'll be seeing right now. So here is the list that I played in London. Pretty simple stuff. The 4 Baby Yveltal. Really in here to outrun a Totina's hammers, because you can reattach energy each turn whenever it gets knocked off. It can also really take the pressure off double colourless energy in your deck, so that we can already have Vespiquens powered up without the need of finding double colourless. The 4-4 Vespiquen, pretty simple. It's our big late game swinger. You don't really need the 4-4. Normally I ended up getting 1 or 2 out in each game, and just to mop up prizes really. You can end up compressing away other pieces of the Vespiquen line a lot of the time, just to sort of fuel the attack. Then we have the 3-3-2 Golbat and Crobat line. It's all about these sneaky and surprise bites for the most part. It can really help you kill EXs early on with Vespiquen, with extra bat drops. Also, it's really good against Night March. The main reason I put this in here was for Night March. Crobat kills Joltix. It also kills Feebas, which is the main tech right now in UK builds, at least, of Night March. So really good stuff there. And 2 Shaman EX, I feel like we didn't really need more than 2. Also, I did start off with a higher count. I had like 3 or 4 in here, but just leading with it against Night March can just lose you games. So I didn't really want that to happen too much. So 22 Pokemon, pretty low and pretty bad if I was up against Mega EX decks, because I pretty much wouldn't be able to one-shot them. But I was expecting more to face Night March and Totina, so it was more of a metagame call, and I can definitely see this build changing in the following weeks. Even like the bats may not even be good at all. You could switch them out for Zoroark pieces or something like that, you know. Vespiquen is one of these anti-meta sort of cards where you put a bunch of stuff in that can beat other stuff, and then Vespiquen's your late game swinger for just a double colourless. So don't expect the build to be the same if I was to play it next week or the following week after that. It basically is always going to be changing, so there's not much use actually seeing this list. I know it sounds bad and all, but the list changes so drastically depending on what you're expecting to face. That there's never really going to be a Vespiquen build that stays, you know, that everyone can sort of pick up and play, because it changes week by week what you're going to face, and therefore how good Vespiquen will do will base on how it can adapt, if that makes sense. A couple of things I want to highlight. I did play that Teammates. This was literally like a last minute change. I think I had the third Shaman at the time when I switched it for Teammates. Probably the best decision I could have made. It was often a very first turn battle compressor target. Just get it in the discard pile, so throughout the game we have those 4 VS Seekers that can get Teammates back whenever we want. With 22 Pokemon, this deck can clunk up quite a bit, so Teammates really gets us into things like double colourless energy, the only card in Standard right now that can do that, which is important. And it gets us into the other pieces that we need, maybe the bat lines, maybe another Yveltal if we're up against Night March, you know. It just gets us the things we need and keeps us ticking over very, very nicely without having to go for Sycamores turn after turn, because sometimes you can have clunky bits of the bat line stuck in your hand, sometimes you have double colourless stuck in hand, so you don't want to discard it all, you want to hold stuff and use Teammates to get your other resources. As you can see, the trainer line is really consistent. I've just maxed out everything, 4 OVs of Ultra Ball, Compressor, VS Seeker, Mail, just so that we can get into our stuff as best we can. The supporter lines are really thin. I'm playing 1 OVs of everything other than Sycamore. That's just because of space. The amount of Pokemon we play means that we have to do that. One of the most painful things was just having 1 Lysander. I think there was 2 or 3 games throughout the day where I really would have loved to have a second, and I actually lost games because I only played 1 Lysander and all my VS Seekers had been used already. So it's not often that I only play 1 Lysander. I felt like this deck made me, sort of, and it did really punish me a lot throughout the day. So if I could make any changes, I think a second Lysander to this build would really go down well. So finally, just 10 energy. It's quite a high count for Vespiquen. Oftentimes they play like 6 or 7 with the 4 double colourless and then a couple of metals if it's the Bronzong build. But obviously we're using Baby Yveltal here as our accelerator. And you need to see it as often as you can for playing against Night March, so that you can compressor one away and still have confidence in your deck that you can draw into more dark energies each turn. So yeah, pretty simple stuff there. So let's go on to a little round by round. Round 1, I'm up against John Evans, and it turns out I was sat at the TCG side. Okay, this event was running TCG and video game at the same time. So went to sit down, found my table and all that good stuff. I think it was table 42, so there I am, sat down at the table, and there's no opponent. No opponent just sat opposite me, so everyone else has cracked on, the round has begun and all that good stuff. And just looking around, don't see my opponent. I guess he didn't turn up or something, but then a judge came over, asked who my opponent was. I said, John Evans, yeah, you're the guy. And he said, well, that's really weird. I've seen him around. He's just clearly not found the table yet. So I wait for 10 minutes and eventually I get the win. And then I look over and he's actually sat at the video game side on table 42 as well. So he is sat on his own with, you know, 6 rows of tables. Just no one's at them except for him. And he just, for some reason, didn't figure out the fact that he was in the wrong place. Yeah, I really don't know how that happened. I spoke to him later in the day, and he wasn't too bothered about it. So somehow that mix-up happened. I really can't explain it. I don't know what was going through his head. But I got a free win, and that's really good against Vespiquen and Yveltal, because I felt like the round 1 would have really affected my day. If I had done well, that means I'm up against more Totinas and Night March players, because those are the ones winning right now. So if I had lost my round 1, I could have been facing, you know, other anti-metagame stuff, other crazy decks, or less popular decks that hadn't won their first round. So I was really fortunate in the fact that I won round 1, because it really sets you up nicely when you're playing an anti-meta deck. Probably round 1 is the one that you need to win to give yourself a good chance. So I was quite fortunate there. Into round 2, I'm up against Tubbs Woolner. Tubbs is his nickname. He's not a fat guy. He's just, yeah, that's his nickname. And he's playing Lucario Crobat. And it's not a difficult matchup for me, seeing as though Yveltal has such high HP and that resistance as well. It really forced Toby to really commit a lot of fighting energy to his Lucarios. Obviously, Horlucha's doing nothing because I'm all non-EX. And when he does commit this much energy to Lucario to finally kill my baby Yveltals, I can come in with Crobat and Skill Dive with Muscle Band does 100 damage to the active. And with a couple of early Oblivion Wings plus the Sneaky and Surprise Bites, I was able to take out the Lucarios quite quickly. Obviously, I had the chance to Sneaky and Surprise Bite around his Focus Sashes, so they weren't doing much. And essentially, by the time he's able to deal with, you know, a couple of my non-EX attackers, Vespiquen's ready to go with Be Revenge and clear up the game for me. So a couple easy games there. I think my favourite play was in our game 2, where I could use a Swoop Across to kill a Lucario in the active thanks to weakness and break 2 Focus Sashes on the bench as well. So that was a really nice play. And because he actually attached those Focus Sashes, one was attached to Lucario, and it meant that he couldn't actually extend enough to kill the Golbat. And it also meant that he couldn't extend enough to kill a Vespiquen in the active. So I think him attaching the Focus Sash was one of the biggest errors that he made, because against bats you can't expect the Focus Sash to actually stick, and it meant that he couldn't actually put Muscle Band on, which would have been way more helpful in that matchup. So a slight adjustment in his play, and he could have had a much better time against me, but just the way it happened, I was able to negate the effect of the Focus Sashes and break through Lucarios quite easily in both games. Into round 3, I'm up against Luke Kirkham, and he's the guy who won last weekend, beating me in top 4, and he's playing the same deck, Manectric Crobat. And we have a very interesting 3-game series. Game 1, I am able to develop double Combee, double Zubat, and by turn 2, he attaches to active and doesn't overrun for 2020. And then I can somehow just go crazy with Battle Compressors and Ultra Balls and Shamans, and I think I also get a Sycamore in there as well. And I am able to get enough damage onto his Manectric with the combination of Golbat drops and Pokemon in my discard pile that I can Be Revenge to knock out his active Manectric EX. I fully went for it just to take all of his energy off the board, and from there, because he's not playing the Mega Manectric EX, he's never has enough energy that he can attach per turn to do enough with Manectric EX, of course. With Muscle Band, his overrun is doing 40 to Vespiquen, so even with a bat drop here and there, he wasn't able to clear it up. And by that time, I've gone so far ahead in prize trade that I just win game 1 quite quickly. In game 2 and 3, he sets up a lot nicer. Obviously, he's going first in the second game, and he's able to develop bats quite early as well. And really, just because I have weakness on he has weakness on Yveltal and Crobat, so they're not really as chunky as I would like in other matchups. And also Combee with only 40 HP, it's a real easy target for overrun in addition to Golbat drops and stuff. So he actually runs me out of attackers by killing 2 Combees quite early on in the game. And you know, Baby Yveltal's a bad attacker against him, Crobat's a bad attacker against him. Vespiquen's the only real thing that can do anything to the Manectric, and because he was able to take out so many Combees, he was just basically able to win the war of attrition. And it's a very similar story for game 3 as well. So it did go to time, our game 3, and I think I was 1 or 2 prizes away. But again, he'd run me out of attackers, so in the long game he was always going to be fine. So he was actually able to take his last 2 prizes on the last turn of time. And if you guys have been paying attention, last week he did the exact same thing to me as well. So he's in my bad books these days. Into round 4, I'm up against his brother once again. I've played both the Kirkhams in the last 2 weeks, like both of them again. So, and again, he's playing the same list as well. He's playing Night March with my Lotic, and this deck is meant to beat Night March. This is one of the main concepts around it. Yveltal is so good because Oblivion Wing can kill Joltix and Pump Caboose for just 1 dark energy, whilst in the process attaching more energy to your board, so that the following turn you always have an attacker against Night March. And basically, because I'm always non-EX as well, we're trading 1 for 1 each turn. And it's really good for me because I'm playing the bats in here, so I can use stuff like Sneaky Bite and Swoop Across to kill something like Joltik, and I can even use Surprise Bite to kill stuff like Feebas and Joltik in just a single ability rather than the attack. So I have the option to take an additional prize, you know, in the turns 3, 4, 5 and stuff once I've developed these bats, as long as I'm not being hit with Hex Maniac each turn, which Corey does indeed play because all the good Night Marchers are playing 2 to 3 Hex just to try and stop these sorts of tactics. So game 1, he's able to donk a baby Yveltal, which is really annoying because my deck is meant to beat Night March, and taking that first game loss is really bad for me because I play so many Pokemon, as you know, and I play those 4 Ultra Balls, I play all those supporters and everything, and I just couldn't hit them. I think my hand was 5 energy when I drew for turn, so really horrible stuff there. But in the next 2 games, I'm able to do what the deck is meant to do. I think in game 2, there was a crucial point where I Hex Maniac to stop him using Sparkling Ripples to get his DCEs out of the discard pile. All 4 had gone. So I was able to Hex that turn, take 1 more knockout, and then the following turn, obviously, he can't respond, which then gave me the chance to get back ahead in the prize trade by capturing up a Shaman for the game. So pretty shaky stuff there. But really, it was the only play I had to make in that matchup. From then on, game 3 was really easy. I was able to backdrop stuff, and he didn't draw too well. So a nice win there against Night March, and it's what the deck's built to do. In round 5, I'm up against another Lucario Bats deck. Game 1, I'm able to set up and do what I do. He really doesn't get much going. I think he starts off just finding bats and not much else. But eventually, I'm able to beat him down just with the consecutive bat drops and B-Revenges. Game 2, it's a lot more shaky for me. It takes me a long time to get set up here, and he really does start going really quick. And it's one of these things where Vespiquen feels like it has a really strong late game, so I probably should have scooped. If it was any other deck that I was playing, I probably would have. But just based on the fact that, you know, the bats get stronger when I'm able to find them, and the Vespiquen gets really strong when I'm able to develop that in the mid to late game, that I stayed in the game maybe 10-15 minutes longer than I should. And I carried on with this game too, and just wasn't, you know, in the end I couldn't win the game, so I just scooped a little bit too late. And it really punished me because in game 3, I was once again setting up as per usual and doing quite well against the matchup. And I ended up going down to 2 prizes, and time was called, and he was able to Sky Return his Shaman to deny the last 2 prizes, so I couldn't win. So we actually tied that matchup. It's kind of frustrating because I felt like I have a slightly favourable matchup. As you saw in the earlier rounds, I was able to beat a Fighting Bats, and getting a draw sort of felt like a loss in my book because I was so far ahead in that game 3. And it was kind of annoying. Ended up at 3-1-1 after round 5, so I knew that I had to win my next 2 rounds. So in at round 6, I'm up against Ben Pollock, and he is playing Seismitoad Giratina. I think he played Crawdaunt as well. I can't remember. I know he did the week before. I didn't know if he was playing it this week, but I didn't see any. I was able to threaten Toad really quickly with Vespiquen in this matchup, and game 1, it goes quite well for me. He does do a Lysander Chaos Wheel to kill a Vespiquen on the bench, but I did have another Combee with a Dark Energy on my bench, so I could bring that up, attach a Dark for turn, evolve up into Vespiquen, and then take out the Giratina. Then he's left with no energy on his board, and I'm able to be revenge for the last 2 prizes the following turn, as he really can't develop anything that next turn. So good stuff there. Game 2, it's a kind of bit easier for me, but only based on his horrendous draws. There's a couple of turns where he could have got Chaos Wheel and really started to develop his board before I had commit too many Commies to the bench, but he just wasn't hitting Double Dragon, and therefore he wasn't getting any attacks off, which allowed me to drop bats down, to put damage on Giratinas early, and put damage on all these other things, get more attackers going. and basically he ends up with an 8-card deck, and he still hadn't hit double dragon energy, and I was able just to sweep up the prizes quite easily from there. So into round 7, I'm up against Luke Burke. He's actually one of the creators of this really awesome Night March build, the one that has all the Hex Maniacs and the Milotics. He was the very first one in Huddersfield to top cut with it, so it was pretty much his creation. Very good player, and very awkward matchup as well. He was able to chain Hex Maniac for like 4 turns, but on that 5th turn, where I think he hit like 2 Acrobike Tails, no, not Acrobike Tails, Roller Skates Tails, in the same turn, and it meant that he couldn't find the Hex Maniac that he needed, because again, I was waiting with Golbat. It's still important to evolve into Golbat in the matchup, even when you're being Hex Maniac, because Crobat's the real painful one, so whenever he can't Hex Maniac, you need to have the Crobat ready to use, basically. And I was able to do that game 1, and I think I killed a Feebas as well, so he couldn't even go into Milotic. So again, prize trade in my favour in this matchup, so I'm able to win out there. And then in game 2, he prized 2 double colourless energy, so he ended up scooping after like 6 turns because I got rid of 2 early. I was threatening to kill any Feebas that he could put down, so he literally would have had to put 2 Feebas down at once. I would kill one with a Crobat, and then he'd have Sparkling Ripples the next one just to get a 3rd DCE back. But obviously I was never going to bench an EX, so he would have had to have got 3 Sparkling Ripples off, and I obviously was going to deny that at some point. So really awkward prizes for him, and it helped me win round 7. So there we are. The standings after Swiss. Sorry about the photo. It's just how it was printed out. It wasn't the photo itself. I am in there at number 7 with Vespiquen Yveltal Bats. Just below me is Scott Burgess with Manectric Regice. Then it's Fraser Anderson with Night March. Nilo with Fighting Bats. Nathan McClure with Night March. Carl Blake with Mega Gengar Wobbuffet, as well as Michael Cornwall with Mega Gengar Wobbuffet. Something I never thought I'd say. And then top of the rankings, undefeated, because he actually couldn't even he couldn't ID his last round, Luke, because he got paired down, I think. So he had to win out his last round, and he ended up doing so. Oh no, he had to win or tie, but he managed to win. So there he is at 6-1-0 with that same Manectric Bats deck that we saw come first last weekend. So clearly a consistent and well-built deck there. So let's talk about these Mega Gengar Wobbuffet decks. How are these doing well, and what are they all about? So basically, the 4 Wobbuffet just to slow everything down, give no one abilities, all that good stuff. You're still playing the 4 Robo-Subs so that you can switch into those against stuff like Night March and Fighting Bats, just to deny prizes against these more aggressive decks. And you set up the Gengar to do his classic hit and switch tactics, and you also have the Mega. And why is the Mega good? Well, basically it means that you can copy Chaos Wheel against Seismitoad Giratina, so that they can't actually attach any energy. The Gengar Wobbuffet deck was playing some disruption cards, like Xerosic, Crushing Hammers, Enhanced Hammer, so once they took the energy off the Totina player's board, they could keep copying Chaos Wheel with the Mega Gengar, so that they can never attack you. Very creative idea. And then against stuff like Night March, you can actually copy things like Sky Return and pick up your Gengars to take prizes, sending them back into a Robo-Sub. So, again, really creative ideas how you're going to win these matchups. I really didn't see that stuff coming. So, for those two both to cut with it, great idea, and well applicated as well throughout the day. And that's actually what I faced in the top 8. I was up against Michael. And really weird series of games. Going into the matchup, I felt like I had slight favours in certain spots, but I also knew nothing about the deck. Baby Yveltal's weak to super effective against Gengar. Crobat is super effective against Wobbuffet, so I have inherent advantages. Also, especially because Mega Gengar can't copy anything too spectacular on my side of the board. And that's one of the main things the Mega Gengar's all about, just copying a good attack that your opponent plays. Well, I don't actually play any good attacks. Obviously, Be Revenge only gets strong on my side of the board because I dump loads of Pokemon. And Michael doesn't have that sort of engine to get much going on in the discard pile, so he had nothing really legitimate to copy. In game 1, he is able to do quite well, actually. He uses Wobbuffet with Energy and D-Valley, with Muscle Band to put initial 30 damages onto all my baby Yveltals, and then he goes into Mega Gengar to actually steal my Darkness Blade attack. Bear in mind that he hits 4 Crushing Hammer heads to make sure that my Oblivion Wings are doing nothing, while I was trying to set up Darkness Blades on the bench, basically. He hit all 4 of his Crushing Hammer heads, and then he proceeded to hit heads twice on the Darkness Blade attack that he copied. So I think it was kind of the luck of the flips that really took me out of that matchup. Also the fact that I had to Sycamore away 2 parts of my bat line quite early on. And the Crobat, it turns out, is a really amazing attacker in this matchup. And I just was denied it pretty much just by having bad hands and having to Sycamore away pieces of the bat line before I developed my Zubats. So a combination of bad draws and bad fortune for me in the first round. I mean, in the first game. But in the next 2 games, I'm able to set up and do what I like to do. In game 3, he has a Wobbuffet stuck in the active. Bear in mind, we don't have Floatstone legal yet. This is still pre-breakthrough, so he was using Mystery Energy and a high switch count. But his benched Gengar EX already had 2 Mystery Energy on it. And he was just draw passing after he Shaunted himself. And yeah, he couldn't move Wobbuffet. I came in with Crobat and did plenty of skill dive snipes to the point where I could actually kill his Gengar EX on the bench, wiping all energy off his board, and from there, you know, I could set up Yveltals to take more Lysander knockouts and stuff like that, and it was pretty much all around good for me. Very difficult matchup for him going in. He did well to win game 1, but the next 2 games I sort of set up how I should do, and ended up on top there. So let's look at some other games in the top 8. Night March was able to beat the other Mega Gengar Wobbuffet deck, so those are both out. Another Night March wins against Fighting Bats. I think it's slightly favoured just based on you know, stuff like Focus Sash and Bats come into it, but the fact that you have to use Lucario for the most part as your main attacker, it bodes well for Night March. So I think a definitely winnable matchup for the Fighting Bats, but overall I'd say Night March is still slightly favoured there. And then we saw a Mega Manectric Regice take out Luke's Manectric Bats. I think that's mainly down to Rough Seas kicking in to sort of deny the Bats from doing too much and making it awkward to knock out the Mega Man. And I'm sure Regice put in a shift as well. So, in the top 4, I'm up against Night March. This is exactly what sort of matchup I want to be playing up against. So, I was pretty happy with that. I missed the Mega Manectric, which is perfect. Because I'm pretty sure I would have lost to Mega Manectric. Probably a very hard matchup for me. But yeah, you can see this matchup. It's on stream. Kyogre Streams UK is the Twitch channel. I'll put that in the description below as well. And Ross Gilbert, PTCG Radio, he also commentates this game as well. So that is in the link below also. Or in the description below. There you go. And basically, I win both games. As you're meant to do against Night March, really. He has a horrible prize. Well, we both have horrible prizes in game 2, so it might be interesting to try and watch that. So the other top 4 game, we saw Night March beat Mega Manectric. Again, you can kind of assume this as a favourable matchup for Night March, just because it's really difficult for Mega Man to one-hit stuff like Pumpkaboo, especially because they can't get their energy acceleration going. So again, I can see how Night March ended up winning that matchup. Which means I'm in the final against Night March once again, which is fantastic. However, good news and bad news. Bad news is that Nathan had to catch his last train home, so he actually conceded the final to me, and that's it's pretty good. I won without having to actually win the game, but you know he was considering this option for about 10 minutes, and basically he could have stayed for the extra hour of playtime that we had, but he would have missed his train like indefinitely. And it would have taken him an extra handful of hours to get home. And he was with like 3 or 4 other buddies as well, so it was going to be very difficult for him. So he just asked me if I'd played any Night March earlier on in the day. I said, yes, I have. And if you've been following me so far, I've actually beaten 3 Night Marches to get to the final. And he was like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose this game if I stayed for the hour anyway, so I may as well just go. We ended up agreeing that I would keep a load of boosters sealed, and that we would play on PTCGO. You can actually see this on the channel already. I've put it up, so you can watch the best of 3 that we had. And again, I've given the footage to Ross, so he's also going to commentate that in a less biased fashion, because of course, I'm talking about how I'm making my plays and how I'm going to try and do things in each turn, whereas he can commentate it with a fresh set of eyes and talk about both sides of the board. So there we are. I'm able to win the final without actually playing it, but I guess, you know, it's a favourable matchup for me, and as you'll see on PTCGO, I'm able to win against him anyway, so I feel like had the matchup had carried on for that actual last hour of play, I feel like I would have come out on top just based on matchups. So here we are, final standings. I am at the top. That's a photo I took. We didn't actually have the trophies yet in the UK, so I got a little piece of paper. And there's the box that I opened as well. So yeah, Vespiquen, Yveltal, Crobat managed to take the win. Nathan and Fraser in there with the Night Marchers. They did a lot better than the last couple of weeks. They last week at Sutton, none of them made it past top 4, I don't think. And then, oh no, one made it past top 4, I believe. Then there's the 2 Manectric decks, the 2 Gengar decks, and Fighting Bats as well. So very interesting last regional in my opinion. I really didn't see that coming. I didn't see Mega Manectric making the top 4 at all, and I didn't see these Gengars. These completely came out of the blue as well. So some shocking surprises in the top 8 at London. But that's all dead and buried now because the new format is kicking in. So next week we are in Newport in Wales. Newport, new format, and let's have a look. Me and Jack tonight will be doing a comprehensive rundown of our favourite decks from the new standard format with all the new breakthrough introductions as well. So hopefully you should be in the know what to expect, what you think you're going to play against, and what's the best stuff right now. So definitely stick around for that. I hope you enjoyed this regionals profile. Hopefully I can be doing you another report next weekend once I come back from Newport, and we'll see how I did there. At the very least, I feel like I'll do some sort of analysis based on what's being played and stuff, because right now I really don't know. All we have to go off is our playtesting and other people's opinions right now, because obviously this will be the first week where the new set is legal, so anything could happen. Hopefully it's going to be enjoyable content for you guys, so definitely stick around. Me and Jack will be talking for probably at least an hour. You know how these things can go, so just stick that on in the background. A little bit of radio for you. So there you are, guys. I hope you enjoyed this regionals report, and tell me what you think about the deck that I played and how I navigate certain matchups. I'm not saying by any means that it was a good deck. I'm just saying it's a really good meta call for the day, and I hit the right matchups, and that's what can happen. So it's been Joe from OmniPoke. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.